I'm going to start webinar. Brace yourself.
Sounds good.
The webinar is now broadcasting to all attendees. I guess I don't know how many attendees there are, though. Nope, I lie. I have a participants count, and it's slowly ticking up. So I'm going to give people. I'm Dave, by the way, if you're seeing this. People are joining. I'm going to give about 1 minute because the numbers are pretty rapidly clicking upward. 17. 20. We'll start in just a minute. Having said that, the count appears to have stabilized at 20, so I think that's where we are. So we will just start. If anyone else dials in, that's great. Hey, welcome. My name's Dave Butler. I publish under Dave, but also under principally under DJ Butler. And welcome to the Query Writing Workshop. Oh, we do have more folks dialing in now. That's okay. Let me tell you briefly about me, and this is good because if you're dialing in late, this is the eminently missable part of this. So my background is I'm actually a lawyer by original training. I worked in corporate law for 11 years, and then started taking a crack at the thing I'd always thought I would be, which is a fantasy novelist. I've been also a corporate trainer for about 7 years, so I've got a lot of experience teaching classes over Zoom and other platforms like this. Recently, actually, I have retooled as a registered investment banking representative. So I'm actually out raising capital for a couple of small tech companies with my partner when I'm not writing science fiction and fantasy novels. I was acquisitions editor at Wordfire Press, I'm not sure it's fair to call it small. Maybe it's a medium-sized independent publisher headquartered in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Kevin Anderson. Likely this crowd, a bunch of you know the name Kevin J. Anderson. I was the acquisitions editor for 3 years. And I've got books out with Knopf and Bain and Wordfire Press, and one published by Immortal Works that actually came out yesterday, my first contemporary thriller. And then I'm in discussions right now to do some more nationally published middle grade fiction. So that's just kind of a little bit about who I am. Now, should you care what I have to say on the subject? Let me tell you, I've been quite successful writing query letters. So I got my first agent, Peter Ruby, didn't know the guy, on a cold query letter, querying his website. After a year, we parted ways. I got my second agent and current agent, Deborah Warren, on a query letter. My wife concluded that this is obviously any idiot can do this if Dave can do it. So she wrote a novel. I wrote her a query letter, and we picked up an agent for her, represented by Stephen Chudney. I write the queries that go to the publishers, which means I've written query letters that have gotten me deals at Knopf and Bain and Immortal Works, and again, soon to be announced, another national traditional publisher of middle grade fiction. So I know what I'm talking about. I have made actual money. What are we going to do today? Okay, this is my objectives for the next 2 hours. I am not interested in lecturing to you about theory, and I'm not really interested in spending a lot of time telling you about me. You're going to see some of my query letters because those are samples I have to hand. Okay, but that's not to I'm not trying to impress you with myself. I want you to come away with a good query letter for whatever you want to sell next. Okay. And I want you to have a good letter, and I want you to know what next steps are to go out and get an agent and or an editor, because fundamentally the kind of querying is the same. In terms of timing, we are not going to take breaks. That means we have like about an hour and 50 minutes. You probably already know that these sessions are being recorded, so if you put things in the chat, realize that's going to be captured in the recording. So just don't be surprised. Speaking of tools, there's a Q&A tool where you can ask me questions and I will answer them. We have enough time that we can have digressions. There's also a chat, and you should feel free to write things in the chat to each other and also to me. I have both those windows open on my screen so that if you have questions, we can discuss them. in order for you to come away with a good query letter, you want something to write with. Probably that's just a writing tool open on your desktop. If it's a pen and paper, that's of course great. In the past, I've taught this in live in-person sessions. People don't usually have their laptop with them, so people are writing out with legal pads. And actually, if you're typing into a Word file or a note or something similar, that's great because I will ask maybe people to share samples of what you write. So you're going to write a query letter today, which means there will be periods where I will stop and I will be quiet for 3 minutes, and I'll say write a paragraph that does X, and write a paragraph that does Y. And if we were in person, what I would then have you do is in a small group. I'm a corporate trainer, remember, huh? In a small group, I'd say share with each other, and I think my slide is even set up this way. Critique the person on your left, right, kind of thing. These tools aren't great at small groups, and I'm not going to try it. So, but I will invite you people maybe to drop a paragraph into the chat so we can all read it and we can, make observations on it. Okay? And you are going to see my stuff not because my examples are always right and successful. Sometimes I'm going to ask you to critique and suggest things that could have been done better in my query. Yeah, in fact, the tool may even have breakout rooms. The problem is I have a lot of experience with Zoom and also WebEx and Teams and all of them. And breakout rooms are cool, but they're sort of more cool for, ooh, look, I can do this, than like really effective. So, so it's okay. It's all right. We're still going to come away with a query letter and know, not just in general sense, but know precisely what to go do with it next. Now, I will email you documents. Well, Mariah, you're luckier than I am. Yes, they all break in their own ways. I will email you documents if you want. What will I email you? I will email you this slide deck. Okay. And I'm not saying that to encourage you to stop taking notes, but if you want to, I've got like some screen caps later on. If you want to be able to look at those at your leisure, I will email you the slide deck. And two, I will also email you a document I'll show you. It's just an Excel spreadsheet for tracking queries. Yeah. Now I think the easiest thing to do is this. Okay. Put your email address in the chat if you want the documents. Okay. And I will come back and collect them. Now here's the thing. I'm a writer, so I'm happy to have email addresses to email people my weekly updates about what's going on. So let's do this. If you don't want me to put you on my mailing list, say something like that, okay? Like here's my email address, right? No list, right? Don't put me on the mailing list. And then I won't. Okay, and if you don't indicate that, I'll put you on my mailing list, and you'll get invitations to like sign up for chances to win free books and stuff like that. And you can always unsubscribe. All right, so I will come back and harvest these emails later while you guys are working on stuff. I'm going to move forward. So part one, everyone wants to write a query letter. Whoops, I just went backwards. Okay, there we go. So first of all, what is it? So realize that a query letter is asking someone to do something. Okay, the heart of it, the most important thing is that you are asking someone to do something, and you need to be clear about what you are asking. Usually, we're talking about professionals in the business, and agent and editor are not an exhaustive list, but most likely that's who you're interested in reaching out to. It could also be, cover artists or, marketing professionals or other kinds of people, but we're going to talk mostly about agents and editors, okay? It's a letter to somebody asking that person to do something. Now, when you're emailing an agent, and here's what I'm mostly going to talk about is agents, okay? You are asking them to do really two things, and that is, hey, one, I want you to read my book, and two, I want you to consider being my agent, okay? Now, you're going to want to actually say those things in your email, but I want to just say up front, hey, this is the heart of it, so let's stay focused on that. Now, a query is actually a pretty easy document to write. The first few times you do this, it's stressful. You don't know, is this right? Am I going to offend people? But it becomes easier until it's second nature. Okay, a query most of the time, like anything else in writing, Once you know what you're doing, you can break the rules, okay? But for starters, let's just do it the straight way. Here's the straight way. A query letter has 3 paragraphs, okay? Letter to an agent or an editor has 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1, ooh, this story sounds good. Huh? Paragraph 2, oh man, no, it sounds really good. And paragraph 3 is the business. That's it. That's all that goes in a query letter, okay? Now, let's talk about the business first. And at Michael, I will send it. If you give me an email address, I will email it to you. If you don't want me to add you to my mailing list, type your email address in the chat and say something like no list or something like that, okay? If you just put your email address, I'll put you on my mailing list. You can always unsubscribe. I'm pretty innocuous, but not everyone wants to be on a mailing list. Let's start with paragraph 3, the business. Okay, now in a minute you're going to write the business for whatever your whip or your whatever it is you're getting ready to take to market. Okay, so bear this in mind. Here's what goes in the business. Word count. How long is the book? One of the key reasons why this matters is because it tells the agent whether you even understand the market. If you say I have a 200,000 middle grade fantasy, 200,000 word middle grade fantasy, no one will represent you because no middle grade fantasies are that long, right? That's 3 times as long as Harry Potter is. If it's a YA novel, you're really looking at something like 60 at the low end, 90 at the high end. Above that, you really got to get lucky to get in. I read an interview with blanking on her name, Twilight author. And she said, and her manuscript's 120,000 words, book 1, which is way too long, right? Which is way too long. And she said the only reason she even got Stephanie Meyer, that's it. Oh, very good. Just as Jess beats me over the finish line. She said the only reason the manuscript even got read by her agent is because the agent had a new assistant. And the assistant didn't realize, the assistant was being set to read queries, yeah, and didn't realize, and by the way, that should set up a thought in your head that, hey, in the first instance, it might not be agents who read this. So it's another reason to stick to the rules. The new assistant didn't realize that there was a word count, that word count mattered. So she really loved the description of the YA novel, and she asked for it back and got the YA novel and read it and handed it on to the agent. And if she had been around in the job longer, she would have turned it down because it's 120,000 words. So again, sometimes you break the rules. But look, word count, genre. Be simple when you identify genre. Okay. Look, genre. The genre walls are collapsing somewhat, especially in the indie space. Right? And you all know what I mean when I say genre, right? Epic fantasy is a genre. Steampunk is a genre. Whatever. And if you wanted to say an epic fantasy romance or a steampunk romance, you could probably go that. But you don't want to say an epic fantasy steampunk romance. You're getting too complicated. Okay? Now, historically, genre is really a bookseller's issue. It's an issue that has to do with the fact that the shelving in your bookstore is finite. And you have to organize stuff somehow. So you pick a limited number of categories and you go, okay, mystery, western, literary fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy. Barnes & Nobles actually recently are starting to split those into 2 different, which is actually a move I dislike for various reasons. But and so you want to say to the agent, hey, this is the shelf that my book goes on in the bookstore. Now Amazon has the ability to have infinite genres. And so in the indie space, you do see a wild flowering of micro genres. This is a cyber godpunk noir. Don't do that in your query letter, okay? A simple, straightforward identification of the genre. You say, is this a series? Is it a standalone? You've probably heard this before, but conventionally, the thing you most want to be able to say with your first book when you don't have an agent is this story is complete in itself, and it also has room for sequels, right? Now, if that's not what you wrote, if you wrote book 1 of an epic fantasy trilogy and you know that's what it is, then that's what it is, okay? But that's the ideal thing. This story is self-contained and complete, but has room for sequels. Why? Well, because the agent is being asked to make an investment of time, her time, in you, and you are an unknown quantity. And when she takes you to editors, they are going to be asked to make an investment in you of their time and also their money, and you are basically an unknown quantity. So if you say, look, it's a standalone with room for sequels, that gives them the option to make a small investment and say, hey, I don't know, maybe, but it's worth $10,000 or $20,000 to me to find out. Let's take a shot, knowing I have the option to invest more later. Okay. In any case, regardless, say what the answer is. Obviously, and I've heard this pitch from indies on the floor of Comic Cons. Oh, I just wrote the first book in my series. Oh, interesting. What is it? Well, it's a 27-book young adult fantasy. Well, just don't do that in your query letter. If it's 27 books, say it's 3. Okay, and then just hope you do well enough. You get book deals for the rest. Okay, in your business paragraph, you want to identify your qualifications or experience. Now, people are always tempted to say, anything. Oh, I was on panels at my local con. Oh, I this, I that. Look, really, go easy on this. Go easy on this. It is very unlikely that your qualifications are going to land you the agent or are going to sell your book. Okay? So what kinds of qualifications should you include? Well, if it's directly relevant. Okay? If you were a member of a CIA anti-terrorism task force dealing with the nuclear powers of India and Pakistan, okay, and you've got a thriller, and this is world fantasy, so it's like a fantasy thriller, right? So Thomas, don't say that, right? Don't say that. And that's about the nuclear conflict between Pakistan and India and a fairy kingdom, okay? The fact that you worked for the CIA on the subject matter is probably relevant. If you have a really, really, really big social media presence, okay? What do I mean by really big? Like, well, so I have a friend who writes, he ghost writes all the books for the Covey, the Franklin Covey Company, okay? So all their HR VPs and whatever write their business books. It's my buddy who's writing them. They did some research and they concluded that to move the needle on book sales, you needed 80,000 Twitter followers. Okay, so look, if you have 500 Twitter followers or 3,000, don't mention that. Okay, go easy. Real qualifications or experience. I would say if it's directly relevant to the story or if it really indicates a strong ability to impact sales. Okay, and when in doubt, probably leave it out. And you need to identify, right? This is a query letter. You're asking someone to do something. End on your call to action. And when you are emailing agents, what that sentence probably is the following: May I send you the complete manuscript for your consideration? Okay, probably every time, that's what you're going to say. Now, I think I've got an example. Yes. Okay, here's an example. This is an actual query letter that I wrote. This is the query letter that landed me my first agent, so this was a query letter that was successful. But it was also the second query letter I wrote. The first novel never sold. It was really bad. It never will. My biographer will not even find copies. I've made sure they're all deleted, okay? So this is my second query letter. So I actually think there's a lot to critique here. This is the business section. I'm going to read it out loud, and then I want you to tell me in the chat things that you might do differently or things that you think, not so well done. I am seeking representation, and I'd like to submit to you for your consideration the Drollery Letters #1, The Case of the Devil's Interval, the first in a series. It is approximately 40,000 words long and is a humorous supernatural gothic mystery targeted at intelligent readers of all ages, including young adults. The Devil's Interview is my first book. I have pasted chapter 1 into the text of this email below. All right. This succeeded, but it's not great. So tell me some challenges. Tell me something you didn't do right. Yeah, some of my sentences are long. Yeah, it doesn't match how long the series would be. That could be. The genre thing is crazy. Sarah, your point of I would simply say it's targeted young adults is exactly what the agent who picked me up said. He said, "Look, this is we hope that it picks up lots of other readers, but you know what you got to identify your core audience." Yeah, I should have said it. In fact, actually, really, the core audience turns out not to be young adult. It was I was still figuring this stuff out. It's really a middle reader book, and that's what I should have said. Um, Mariah, we'll come to that. Usually, what you are instructed to do is to paste the first chapter, the first 10 pages into the back of the email. So that's actually usually pretty straight. It's usually okay on that point. Um, yeah, it doesn't show. Well, no, hold on. I haven't included. No, Charisse, you're not being fair. I haven't shown you paragraph 1 and 2. This is just paragraph 3. So yes, I did do 1 and 2. Well, unsolicited. This is what we're talking about: is sending unsolicited. You agents have to be open to unsolicited, or they don't have business anymore. Yeah, I didn't leave. I didn't say. So I'm actually okay with I'm seeking representation, but what I didn't say is. May I send you the manuscript? It really, it's dumb. It's sort of pop psychology, but you really want to end on the call to action, and say, hey, may I send you the manuscript? So I let's some things I did right. Okay, I identify the word count. And I say what I'm wanting, even though I don't ask the agent to do it. I identify that it's in a series, right? Yeah, so that's a mistake too. So I would say one, the description of genre is terrible. I should have just said it's a middle grade gothic mystery, and the title and the paragraphs above would have given away. Melissa, no worries. Would have given away the fact that it's supernatural and funny. Right? If I said it's a gothic mystery for middle grade readers, that's enough. Maybe even already too much. Okay. I don't. There's no reason to say this is my first book. Why did I do that? Because I thought I was supposed to give my qualifications, and I was like, I don't have any qualifications. I've been a practicing securities lawyer for 11 years. That doesn't seem relevant. So I wrote it's my first book. I should have just left it blank. Yeah. So look, so there's several things there that I could have done better. Now, here's what I want you to do, and I'm going to give you some time to do this. So I'll give you so we have 2 hours for the purpose of being able to do this. Okay. So I'll give you 4 minutes. Okay. And I want you to write the business paragraph for whatever it is you plan to sell next. Okay. Even if that book's not finished yet, write the business paragraph. I'll give you 4 minutes and then we'll share some. All right, several of you guys are telling me, "Oh, I did it all." So I won't drag it out too long. If you're still writing, it's okay. Keep working on it. Yes, this paragraph does not have to be long. I was just going to ask people to share. But Kara or Kara has already shared, which is terrific. My novel, The Fires of Mortality, is a paranormal romance fantasy for adults. It is 70,000 words long. It's a standalone, but could easily have sequels and even prequels, I believe. I have published poetry and short fiction in obscure corners of the universe. This is my first novel. May I send you the complete manuscript for your consideration? Hey, I think this is really good. I think there's nothing, there's no red flags here that say this is awful, danger, walk away from this person. Okay, um, just a thought. If you wanted to sort of make this more spare, you could actually strike my novel and just say The Fires of Mortality is a paranormal romance fantasy for adults. And I like that you specify for adults here because for many people that sounds like a young adult, right? Oh, paranormal romance fantasy. This is for a 16-year-old, but yeah, it's for adults. 70,000 words long, and even prequels. And again, if you were trying to be spare, you could strike the and even prequels, I believe, but I don't think that's a problem. And then next sentence, again, I think you could do without your previous publications, but I don't think it's offensive. It says, "Hey, I've been around and done stuff, but nothing that is gonna. I haven't won any prizes that you've heard of, and I haven't hit any major bestseller lists, right? So I think that's Kara. I think that's very good. Or Kara. Frank, if you want to put it in the chat, I will look through a couple. Um, you know, Paige, the truth is I don't know because I'm not a member of any of them. I I suspect it's not that impressive in that it's not that hard to get into SIFWA. So I don't know, what is it communicating? I guess it's saying I've had some pro publications, and maybe I would just say I would say that if you said, hey, I've published, 3 short stories in professional venues, or I won a writing prize. I'm not sure that SIFWA itself, but maybe the predicates for SIFWA membership. Okay, Sarah, Valkyries 50,000 words long. It is post-apocalyptic science fiction. It is the first book in the trilogy. Hey, very straightforward. Boom. Okay, Sarah, I love it. Now we'll kind of get back to this, but probably we'll kind of circle around to this in the second half when you're approaching agents, right? Every agent's website will tell you what to do. Probably the second they'll say, hey, post the first chapter into the email. This is a way for them to read the text without the risk of viruses, right? Is at least how the idea started. So you may make a reference and say, hey, the first 10 pages or the first, whatever is posted in below. But I like that. Very good. Okay, Brady. The Scorn Prince, an 8,000 word fantasy young adult novel. It is a standalone novel with serious potential. May I send you full manuscript for consideration? Bam, very good. Two Masters is now that's interesting. I like that. So how do you identify the titles of books? Italics is how you do it if you're referring to a book in a manuscript. In email, I actually tend to use all caps. I don't know that that's a convention. I mean, most email text editors will let you do italics, and I think it's not, that's not wrong. But I tend to do titles of books and movies in all caps, just like Thomas did in my emails. Now I see there's a Q&A, Myra, here. I'll come over to you in a second, Myra, here. Noel Crawford, Shadowless is a 90,000 word young adult fantasy novel. Its story can stand alone. However, I do have an outline novel for trilogy. This is also an own voices novel. I am a romantic and have prosopagnosia. I don't know how to say that. Prosopagnosia. Is that the difficulty in remembering faces? Is that what that is? I look forward to the possibility of working with you. May I send the complete manuscript for your consideration? I think that is very good. If you want to do it leaner, you could take out the I look forward to the possibility. But I think that is it's a polite That's not a problem that it's in there. Now hold on, I'm gonna jump over here because Myra put something in. Oh, we have like. Okay, hold on. Let me come to the Q and A. I'm gonna jump back over here. Yeah, yes, Myra. So either way, through the chat or through the Q and A is fine. I have two boxes open on my desk. Okay, Kara, the first chapter of my novel recently garnered an honorable mention this year's Utah League of Writing annual writing contest. My guess is I would not say that. I would probably not. I would, unless it's a nationally unless you got a nationally recognized prize, or sort of or maybe like the first prize is something that's more regional. I'd probably just leave it out, right? If you won first place, what is that? The silver quill or the gold quill or whatever the League of Utah Writers calls it. I might mention that. Targeted or aimed? That's funny. I follow the Mossad on Twitter, and then one day they posted a tweet that said, "Hey, recently we've been followed by a whole bunch of email addresses connected with Islamist websites. We're happy that we're reaching our target audience." Badoom boom. Sorry, that's totally politically incorrect. Are there better words? I don't think targeted or aimed are problematic. I think that's fine. Or you can just say it's audience. Just assume that you're going to you're going to hit your target. The audience is boom. All right. Walden House is a standalone Gothic fantasy, approximately 106,900 words, aimed at adults. There is potential for 2 or more sequels. May I send you the completed manuscript? Yep, I like that. Very good. Now that's a little long, so I think look, you know, right? You know that fantasy novels get published all the time that are, and I have published some that are longer than 176,000 words. This is tactical advice. It's a little bit off of the subject of queries, okay? But again, remember, you are inviting agents and editors to make an investment in you, and you're an unknown quantity. Just because you produced 176,000 word book does not mean you can produce 2 more. So you're asking them to take a smaller risk if you send them smaller books. So I Michael, just so you sort of are aware that's a challenge. Oh, Kara's paragraph was up higher in the chat, I think, Susan. From Scott Steele, The Artificer is a 100,000 word standalone fantasy novel for a sequel. In the body's email, you will find the first 10 pages of the novel for your consideration. May I send you a complete manuscript for your regards? Very good. Usually I'd say paste it down below, but I think they will. That's not a problem. Trials of Asar is the first in an epic adult fantasy trilogy with 150,000 words. You will find action, drama, mystery, and adventure. I'm a fun-loving, media-consuming husband with a child on the way. I have managed people, shown leadership, and volunteered frequently. I know a manuscript will be worth your time. May I send it to you? I love this, but I would actually really trim that down into. Remember, you're going to have 2 paragraphs before this to show, not tell, to show the agent that this is a funny book. This is a heartbreaking book, right? This is an exciting book. So you probably don't need to tell them that. So I would trim that out, and as much as I like this description of yourself, Javier, I think I might actually just drop that too. Okay. This is awesome. You know what though? I can't read them all because there's so many. This is great. I'm glad you put them all in, but I'm going to stop right there because there are just so many. Hold on, I got a question from Leanne, and we got other stuff to cover. Okay, Leanne Sponberg. Should you mention if the other books in the trilogy are drafted? It is worth saying. Yep, I think that's probably worth it. Now, there's a double-edged sword here, right? Because if and it's not hypothetical. I know authors who have run afoul of this. Okay, I know an author who sold the trilogy to Tor. They published book 1, got some acclaim, did pretty well, but the direction they wanted to take the sequels was not the direction he wanted to go. So he asked for his rights back and walked away from the Tor publishing contract, right? So the risk when you have already written books 2 and 3, the advantage is you're thinking, and you're thinking very reasonably. does this say to the editor the risk is not as big as it appears? And the answer is yeah, there's an element there. But of course, it also says, hey, if I, the editor, read it and I think this is pretty good, it's solid B, and it can be A if we take it in this direction. But that direction is not the one in which your two drafted sequels go. You may dig in your heels and resist, or you may say no, or you may just have to be rewriting anyway. So I don't know. Think about how you just think about where you want to take the risk there when you mention it. And maybe it's the kind of thing that you don't mention it to the agent, but once you have an agent, you say to her, "Hey, listen, I've got the sequels already drafted. How would you like? How should we present this to editors?" Right. Okay, so look, all we've covered is paragraph 3. What about paragraphs 1 and 2? Okay, this is where you got to get your agent, or if you're writing the queries to the editor interested in your story. Now, I want to do an exercise so that we have the tools to be able to write this. Okay, and here's the exercise. I want you to describe your book with the following. Yeah, this is true. Unfortunately, the business paragraph is pretty formulaic. Okay, now it gets hard. I want you to use this Mad Lib to describe your book. Okay. Hey, so and so is a whatever, right? Who more than anything else in the world wants to do such and such, but cannot because here is the obstacle. To overcome the problem, here's what she does, and if she fails, dun dun dun, it will be the end of the world. Okay, I want you to this. Understand me clearly. I am not saying this is your first paragraph. I'm saying do this exercise so you have the information you want to write your first paragraph. Okay, so let me give you like 3 minutes here. I'm going to answer these questions in the Q&A with text. Fill in this Mad Lib. Yeah, several of you are having the same question. Um, I actually wouldn't worry about who's closest to the theme of the story or the most pain. I would say, who can I write the best query letter about? Right? Be tactical here. You're trying to get the agent to read it. So if, character Bob carries the theme or the moral voice or something, but character Sally is the one who is unemployed and homeless and working in a soup kitchen to help other people when we start, and then, her fairy godmother comes to give her 3 wishes but gets assassinated by goblin thugs in front of her eyes, right? I might pick Sally, even if they're sort of just because she's interesting. She's got problems, and I care about her, which might be who has the most pain. right? Or who is the nicest, or who is the funniest. Um, okay, we got one from Bill. Hey, so that's good. I don't know if you guys can see the Q&A, so I'm just going to copy this over and just put this here. And Bill, I think you have I think you've gone beyond the Mad Libs assignment, right? Let me come back. Let me come back to that and look at that. Oh, here we go. We're starting to get some. Oh, you can see the Q&A. Okay. Here, let me talk to Bill's, and then we got a bunch showing up. In an ancient fertile land that is not quite the one we know, the cat burglar Tima has hired to retrieve a demon god stolen some of authority and return to his proper temple. She soon discovers meddling in the affairs of gods and demons is more dangerous than she had thought. I think that's good. In an ancient fertile land that is not quite the one we know is sort of outside the bounds of the Mad Lib, but it might be the kind of thing that you would say in your paragraph to sort of set the tone, especially if you're writing if it's a fantasy novel. Fantasy is very much about setting. You might want to say Egypt-like or whatever, with knights and demons, with etc. Now, this is, I will say this, Bill. Here's the challenge here. This is a little bit vague. Okay, there is some old country music songwriting wisdom that says you access the universal by describing the particular. So in the song, you don't say Jim was sad. You say Jim's truck broke down the same day his wife left him, right? And then we know he's sad and we feel it. Where if you say Jim was sad, you don't care. So, I would take this and see if I can be really more specific. What are the affairs of the gods and demons that you were meddling with? Okay, Sue. Etienne is a page to a werewolf knight who's been betrayed and left stuck in wolf form. He needs to find his master before he's stuck permanently, so sets out into the forest. There's a time limit. If he doesn't save him by Sam Hain, his master will never return. Okay, so Sue, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good Mad Libs kind of description. And by the way, I think you're pretty close to having a paragraph one. Notice what we're saying here. By the way, about pitching stories is that this is a larger point. Is that people are mostly interested in characters. So mostly what you want to do in your pitch is say, here is my main character, and here's why he is sympathetic, and here's the terrible thing that's happened to him, and here's what he's going to try to do. But if he fails, it's Ladyhawk. He's going to be stuck in wolf form forever. Rah, right? Is way more interesting than saying in a Celtic land where they still practice, they still celebrate Samhain or Samhain, or however you say it, with human sacrifice and this and that, right? Setting matters, and especially matters to fantasy, but in pitching, almost always start with the character. Okay, very good. So there's some, these are other ones, and they are great. And I'll probably read one more here. So let's go. Wade Hoffman is a powerful young sorcerer who, more than anything else in the world, very good, wants to avenge his brother's death. By the way, this exercise, I did not make it up. My wife's agent makes her do this for every book. Mine does not, but his does. Hers does. He'll say, okay, tell me the story, and he means this. Wade Hoffman is a powerful young sorcerer who, more than anything else in the world, wants to avenge his brother's death. Yes, but he can't because the murderer has been crowned king. Oh, the agony! To overcome the problem, he disguises himself with magic and infiltrates the palace. If he fails, he won't be able to live in something longer. Hey, this is really good. Now, I will say this. If you can raise the stakes to something, anything above shame, that might be stronger storytelling, right? He'll be cast out from his people because he will have failed them. He will not inherit. He will whatever. Okay, these are fabulous, and I would love to read through all of these, but then we would run out of time. Okay, so look, this is really just the exercise. This is just the exercise. Prepare us for writing paragraph one. So what you know about paragraph one, and by the way, many of the sort of Mad Libs you filled in, I already said this, are pretty darn close to being a good paragraph one. They're at least the heart of it. Okay. Um, you should stay focused on the main character and her plot. Several of you said, "What if I have multiple point of view characters?" I get that. I have stories with multiple point of view characters. If you can't pick the main one based on the story itself, pick it based on the pitch. If you're not sure, you know what? Write two different query letters. Right? Okay, here's a query letter from focusing on Sally. Here's a query letter from focusing on Bob. Okay. Another possibility is you can focus on Sally in paragraph one and then Bob in paragraph two. So let's hold that in reserve because you're going to get two paragraphs to talk about the story. Okay. But if you've got an ensemble cast with 12 point of view characters, the truth is most of them are not going to appear in the query letter. They're just not. Okay. They're going to appear in the book, and the agent will discover when she reads. Okay, so stay focused on the main character, what may be on two. The problem, now we talked about this a bit in kind of reading your Mad Libs here, but the problem, the stake should be concrete and big. Okay, the quest should be vivid and tangible. The action should be full of risk. So I as an acquisitions editor at Wordfire Press, more than once, many times, I get these query letters where they say this is a coming of age story and finding yourself story, and Sally needs to find her way in the world, or she will never be happy. Or look, it's weak sauce. It's weak sauce. Okay, that's all subplot stuff. The plot should be, I am going to accomplish something big, and if I don't, though, in some important sense, my world is going to be destroyed. Okay, and you should talk about it that way. All right, that's now. So I'm going to give you, I'll give you like in a couple minutes, and if you guys want to share a paragraph one, maybe it's a revision of the Mad Lib you just did. Maybe not, but I'll give you 2 more minutes. Anyone who wants to share a paragraph one can, and we'll take a look at them. Okay. All right, very good. So I got the first one here from Amber. On the verge of eliminating a major threat to the war god's return, loyalist spy and assassin Aurea Olivao accepts a final mission. But when she befriends a human and falls for the man she's been sent to spy on, she questions every belief she holds and realizes only she can turn the tide of the impending war. Hey, I like that. I think that's really good. Now, one question I would have for you, Amber, is to think about, what do you want to put in the second paragraph? Because one thing you might do is take out the falling for the man she's been sent to spy on out of your paragraph one and put that in your paragraph two, right? So paragraph one could be. I'm not saying it should be. I'm just for discussion. Yeah. Paragraph one could be sort of plot, which is this sort of fantasy espionage, right? We know it's fantasy because it's the war god. And I like the loyalist because that sort of implies more than it tells us. It says, oh, there's a world out here. What does it mean she's a loyalist? Well, maybe she presumably she's on the war god's side, right? Um, so I what I might do with this one, Amber, is basically split it in half and say accepts a final mission to what, right? She's an assassin, so she must kill Dude X, right? Presumably, this is the guy she's supposed to. And if she doesn't do it, then war and destruction. And then I might go paragraph 2. Tragically, she falls in love when he rescues her cat, smiles at her, whatever, right? So we'll talk about paragraph 2s in a minute. But I think this is really good. You might consider the possibility of expanding this and making this into both paragraphs. Okay, Laurel, torn between loyalty to her family and a lifelong fascination with the legends of the underworld. Ooh. Elizabeth of Sariel must decide whether to aid a band of rebels in their desperate race to stop an ancient evil from rising, or take her place in the web of power her own family has been weaving for centuries. I like this. I think this is very good. I would say similar things to what I just said to Amber, which is that I've said to a couple people. One, an ancient evil and web of power are a little non-specific. So can you be more concrete? These things are more believable. There's more care about if they're more specific. Is it that we own all the politicians? Is it that we have arcane spells in place that give us magical power? What is the ancient evil? Is it the necromancer who devastated the continent 5,000 years ago? Is it the rise of we thought the elves were all dead. Surprise, they've been in the forest having children, and now there's millions of them. Right? I would see about getting more specific and concrete. But I like this. It's very good. Mariah's making some suggestions for Wade. Oh no, you're adding to, because he can't. The gods will rain terror down upon him. Okay, interesting. All right, Kara posted this earlier. Let's see, she got an expanded paragraph now. Professor Caitlin McShay I like that. That tells us a lot about the person. Professor Caitlin McShay, and it suggests a real world. It would be cool if it's straight up in a fantasy setting, because we don't often see professors in straight fantasy settings. But it suggests that this fantasy has a foot in the real world. Is a harpist and translates manuscripts from Irish to English and teaches at a small liberal arts college in southeastern Iowa. Okay. Middle-aged divorce and face the death of a baby. This is good. This tells us this person is eminently sympathetic. I recognize this person, right? And I care. She has some very human tragedies in her life, and I feel sympathy for her. When they valued her family farm for 2 centuries. One, I might leave out that constructed a rich life, but it's not bad. If you were looking to tighten it up, that might be the sentence I leave out. One day she receives an ancient manuscript delivered by mysterious means to her home. It reopens the old wound of her best friend's murder in Ireland 20 years before, and the mystery of an Irish harper she fell in love with that long ago summer, and most of all, visions of past lives, not hers, of return. Her carefully constructed life. Now this reads like back cover copy. So you sort of described the first act of the book right up until the letter shows up, and then you get a little more vague. So I would say again here, try to be vivid. We're sort of in the ancient evil visions of past lives. Can I get more concrete? What is it? Is it she realizes she's the reincarnation of Boudica, right? And she has to go save Britain by standing against the invasion of Roman ghosts or whatever. But that's very good. Okay, all right. So there's more of these, and if we had like 3 or 4 hours, I would read them all. But we're gonna run out of time. So that's where I'm gonna call that there. That's paragraph 1. Is Kara? Maybe Kara is sending me messages, and is selecting. Yeah. So above the chat, there's a drop down panel where you choose who you message. If you choose all panelists, everyone gets it. If you choose just me, then only I get it, which you can do. But then when I read your stuff, it's going to be weird for others because because they're not seeing it. Okay. All right. I got a question over Noel. Panelists and attendees. Okay. All right. Very good. Panelists and attendees. So, all right. Noel's got a question. I heard you should have a personalized "I know who I'm querying" paragraph. Thoughts? Where would this go? Here are my thoughts. I would usually not do that. If you have picked a genre that they represent, then they will recognize that you picked a genre they represent, and they'll look at it and take it seriously. It is in their interest. They have to pick up new talent from time to time. Okay. It is a lot of work to go through and go, oh, and besides, okay, so like, now here's the exception. Let me start with the exception. If you actually met them, if you met the agent in a context in which they're going to remember you, okay, so not like I sat at the lecture that you delivered in Glasgow last summer. Nope, that doesn't matter. But if you said, you may remember, you and I sat in the TGI Fridays for 6 hours at Dallas Fort Worth Airport because the plane to Houston was missing a wheel. And we talked about how much we blah, 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 right? I like include that, remind them who you are. Or if, they represent somebody in your writing group, right? My buddy Eric recommended that I write you. You represent him. He wrote X. But if you say, I really love the work of Brandon Sanderson, and you represent Brandon Sanderson, so what? Or if you say, oh, thank you guys. Or if you say something like, hey, you represent Jim Butcher. He's an urban fantasy writer. This is urban fantasy, right? Look, the fact that the person represents Jim Butcher may mean that they don't need you because they've already got one. And if there's an urban fantasy opportunity, they'll look to Jim to fill it because they'll get more money for Jim, right? So I it's not at all clear to me that most of that research the agent, right? I think mostly that's nonsense. If you have a real concrete specific thing to say, I would oh, thanks, you guys are all flattered. I would do that. Otherwise, I have never done it. My query letter always starts out with, main character is a whatever, or it just jumps right into paragraph 1. Okay, if there are two main conflicts, you focus on one in paragraph 1. Oh, this is really good, Sherry. So we're kind of in the same space. You guys are funny. We're kind of in the same space, or a space we've touched on a couple times, right? Well, what's the relationship between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2? One thing one relationship could be that there are two main conflicts, and paragraph 1 sets out one paragraph, and one conflict. Paragraph 2 sets out the other. Totally. It could be paragraph 1 says, here's the plot. Paragraph 2 says, here is the subplot that is most interesting or makes it most, most complicates the main plot, right? Which is likely that, a high stakes romance or reconnecting with my, family, those kinds of things go in that second paragraph. But yes, it could be if you've got two main conflicts and they're both kind of big enough to say, look, and the stakes of this are the emperor kills my family. But in conflict 2, the stakes of this are the god of plague is released, right? I think I would probably do those in 2 paragraphs, paragraph 1 and 2. So let's talk about, actually, we're still in paragraph 1. Ha ha ha. Let me throw out some more kind of craft tips here, okay? 1, consider the possibility that one thing you want to do in your query letter is show your ability to use a certain voice. So I have a friend who picked up an agent and got his Simon & Schuster 2-book deal, 6 figures. And this was exactly what the query letter did. The book was written in a certain kind of long-winded, sarcastic, kind of funny voice, and he did the query letter in the same voice. By the way, Daniel Handler, Lemony Snicket, right? A series of unfortunate events. I don't know what the query letters look like for those, but I would bet money that he wrote the query letter in the voice of Lemony Snicket, because those books are all about voice. And so I think consider the possibility that rather than a dry description that says the Baudelaire twins parents have died and they're in the care of Count Olaf, that you actually say, you use the voice. When I first met the Baudelaire twins, blah blah, right? So one, think about voice. Two, high concept is an important tool. Okay. Here are some examples. These first two bullets under high concept are examples of my book's high concept descriptions that I have actually used. So I literally, the sentence, Witchy Eye is Game of Thrones meets Last of the Mohicans. I was at Worldcon in Reno in 2012 or whenever that was, and I went out with Strolling with the Stars and I found myself talking to Tony Weisskopf of Bane and Beth Meacham of Tor. And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm a writer." And Tony said, "Well, yeah, you're wearing a blazer. You kind of look like it." And Beth said, "What do you write?" And I said, "Well, my novel Witchy Eye is Game of Thrones meets Last of the Mohicans." Now, I will tell you this. Beth Meacham snorted and turned her back on me. Tony Weisskopf, 4 years later, bought the series. So, look, what is the purpose of high concept? You're trying to give people a quick handle around what's in the book. Okay? You're trying to get them to imagine what eventual movie posters or toys even might look like before you describe the rest of the story. Now there are risks. One, there's a risk that you come up with a high concept that doesn't actually communicate anything, right? So you say, this story is Metropolitan meets Jackson Pollock. And you go, what? I don't know what that is, because I haven't seen those movies, or they were too old, or the space they intersect is too obscure. And here's I think turned Beth Meacham off when I made that pitch. I think she just thought, oh, every writer's comparing himself to the Game of Thrones. Snort, and turned her back, right? Well, so Chris, the answer is don't use it, right? Use other techniques. This is not you must have this in your arsenal. This is here's an optional skill to be aware of, right? Latanya, Chris, I wouldn't even necessarily worry about it, right? Like, this is, if something here works for you. So another one, the kidnap plot is Pinocchio as if Jules Verne wrote it, right? This actually sold. This is the query letter that went to Random House had a 3-paragraph query, but then it had high concept stuck in between each paragraph, and this was the first one, and that sold the series. If none come to mind, it's don't do it. It's certainly better to not have any than to labor at something and be confusing or communicate nothing. Okay. A third technique in pitching is you can ask kind of what if. Well, see, Amber, that's the risk. I think that's why I turned Beth Meacham off. I said Game of Thrones, and she went, and I think she probably heard 100,000 people compare themselves to Game of Thrones in the 5 preceding years. I don't know if they should always be the last 5 years. I mean, don't you think people are aware of Star Wars or Gone with the Wind? I think the point, Noel, that the editor is getting at is they should be titles you're reasonably comfortable people know. And I would say I would err on the side of a big title rather than an obscure title that's more recent. But that's my 5 cents, right? There's risk either way. There's always risk. You can also have a query letter that poses a question. Here's another example of this is actually the same query letter. The query letter for the Case of the Devil's Interval, and these were the first 2 paragraphs of my the first 2 sentences of my paragraph 1. Okay, what if the greatest crime-solving mind of the British Empire, Mr. Edmund Sirius, were a fraud? What if the true genius behind his famous investigative exploits were in fact the ghost of an 8-year-old girl? So you can see, like, when I got to paragraph 3, I don't really need to say it's a humorous, gothic, supernatural novel. Like, that's already in the first 2 sentences. There is sort of a rhetorical questions. Well, no, you're just trying to get the person's mind thinking, right? And by the way, there is a high concept implied here, right? There's a high concept it's Sherlock Holmes. I don't say Sherlock Holmes, but I say the greatest crime-solving mind of the British Empire, and you know what I'm talking about. And what if he was? By the way, this was like, this is we just saw Enola Holmes, right? I wrote a novel that was Enola Holmes, except Enola Holmes was the ghost of an 8-year-old girl um, behind the detective. Anyway, this is just an example. And again, you don't have to do this. I'm just throwing it out there. If you think that there's a really provocative kind of what if, or what do you think, right? What if there were a book that contained the death date of every person who had ever lived, including people who haven't died yet, right? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, young Jim wakes up from his nap one day, and right. Again, it's like high concept. This is not for every book, but for some books, maybe starting out with a question as a way to kind of hook your agent reader can be effective. All right. All right. Let's talk about second paragraph, and we've already touched on this a number of ways, right? Um, there's a little bit less hard and fast. What is the second paragraph about? The first paragraph, you really want to get the agent, the editor, invested in a story. That means a character and a problem and an attempted solution and a stakes. You really want to get that out there, okay? Vivid, concrete, physical stuff, if at all possible. What are you doing in your second paragraph? Well, you're trying to keep interest, and you are trying also to raise interest. How do you do that? Well, there could be lots of ways. So, and we've already seen this, right? So I've said, hey, maybe if you've got two big main conflicts, maybe paragraph one is the hookier one, and paragraph meaning the one I can more easily describe or hook you with, or the consequences are bigger, or it affects the more sympathetic character, right? Paragraph two is the other one, right? And in addition, the old god of plague, Nurgle, blah. Maybe often it's a subplot, right? So plot one, she is an assassin assigned to kill a dude. If she does not, the god of death, whatever. Paragraph two, exactly. Mike Haspel. Paragraph two, she falls in love with the dude. Right. Now, sometimes you may want to, in paragraph two, tell out the plot a little further. So if you have a story that is basically that's really plot focused, like what? Well, like for example, thrillers, police procedurals. Okay, sometimes none of the characters in those stories have depth. Spy novels. Okay, those are really all about plot. So maybe what you do is you go paragraph one. Let me give you the setup, and here's the crisis, and here's the stakes, and here's what he's going to do, and then we play forward. He starts the investigation. Oh no, he himself is a suspect, right? So now I've just raised the stakes, raised and therefore raised interest, right? What draws the attention of a reader is conflict. So I've added more conflict. I've said a couple of times, fantasy books are often about, they are much more about setting than most genres, right? So maybe one way to increase interest is to work in some of the unusual details of your fantasy setting here, right? In what subplot you choose to describe, or what secondary plot, or how far you want to take the main plot, or maybe you're describing the stakes, right? This is where if your book is idea driven, okay, it's based on a constructed magic system or some kind of anthropological research, or it's based on some kind of idea. You don't want to put the idea in paragraph one. Paragraph one is, here is my character, and here's her problem. Here's what she tries to do. Here are the stakes. But paragraph two could be a great place for it, right? You want to connect them. You want to sort of, in the context of describing a subplot, or in the context of advancing the main plot, you set out this information on the magic system, which is really interesting. Proper nouns, that's really interesting. Not too many, right? Because remember, so what you are inviting people to do is read the 10 pages below and ask for the main book. That's all you're aiming at. And it is very easy to overwhelm them with a long list of within Terabithia there are 4 dukedoms, each one of which has a vizier. The dukedom number 1 is right, doesn't help. So I would this is why I'm saying, hey, try to stay focused to try to stay anchored to the where you started, the character with the problem and the quest she's taking, right? Like the 2 paragraphs should follow naturally. Um, so now, not theme. Someone else mentioned theme in a context earlier, and I said I kind of wanted to back away from it. And I think actually, uh, so one, at the thematic level, all stories sound boring. Okay. Uh, oh, the theme is the coming of age. Oh, the theme is the hard choices you have to make as a parent. Right? Like that describes a million books. It means nothing. Um, it's cool to imply theme. It's cool to it's cool if an agent reads it and says, "Hey, theme. I think the theme is interesting," and she's got a sense of what a theme is. But I wouldn't write to theme even when writing a book, and I certainly wouldn't do it in a query letter. Okay, um, I think it's for now. Having said that, I can imagine some books where I might do that. Okay, if I or I might want to make sure I go out of my way to indicate if I was writing, for example, and it had I'll be sort of careful here, but if I had like a social justice kind of theme, okay, and I would want to make sure that in my descriptions of the setup, I'm implying what is needed to imply to be known by the reader. So they go, oh, this is a story about a guy who can't get a fair shake because uh, his sexuality is not the kingdom's favored, or his ethnicity is not the he's not from the main ethnic group of the kingdom. I still would not identify a theme as such. I would just make sure the pieces are there so that your reader can figure out the theme. Okay. Not because it's bad to have theme, but because theme is never as interesting as the story. Themes don't sell the books, the story sells the books. All right, so man, okay. I'm actually not going to give you time to write a second paragraph, only because I want to make sure we cover stuff and maybe leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A. Okay, so this is your homework: is write your second paragraph. Now, let me show you an example. I had a book come out yesterday, actually. It's called The Wilding Probate. Oh, you know what? Haha, that's funny. I taught this live and in person, and I handed out a copy of the query letter, and I meant to stick it in the presentation, but I didn't. So never mind. Don't worry about any of the bullet points on this. The point here is the headline. Look, it's like writing 5-paragraph persuasive essays in school. Once you get comfortable doing that, it's okay to write a 7-paragraph persuasive essay, right? That's okay. Or a 3 if that's what fits. You learn the 5-paragraph form to get practice. So if at the end of the day, you find that, hey, to really get people hooked, I think what I need is a high concept line, and then, a first paragraph, and then a question, and then a paragraph, and then the business, once you know what you're doing and are sort of comfortable with 3 paragraphs, trust your judgment and do what you feel like you need to. All right, let's talk about, though, the second half of our. You know what? I will email the query letter in the. Frank, that's a good question. Here, I'll even type the answer. Yes. I will send the Wilding probate query letter along. Um, yeah, Jess, that's one thing you might do. So if you were querying your breakout novel, The Fellowship of the Ring, right, and you said to accompany him on his journey, Frodo meets allies, including the mysterious laconic man of violence of the frontier, Aragorn, who seems to be heir to a lost kingdom. And Boromir, his distant cousin with whom he is in conflict, and Gimli the dwarf who hates El, right? Yes, that might be a way to do it. Make sure it stays interesting and doesn't turn into a laundry list. How do you do that? Well, oh yeah, totally will. Conflict creates interest. So this is actually why I started listing the fellowship out as I did. If you're gonna list, imply conflicts there. Don't just make them an ensemble of superpowers. Imply that hey, these allies actually butt heads, and they will have conflict within the group as well as without the group. That's a good question. Okay, now what do I do with it? Now I'm going to focus here on agents, okay? Because in my experience, when I did this, the mysterious wall was, I think I have to have an agent. How in the hell do I do that? And there's a bunch of advice out there, and it's conflicting, and most of it is bad. Okay, I am going to give you some good advice. Okay, and I know it's good because it works. I've got 3 agents with this. Okay, here's an overview of the process. Okay. Overview the process. You are going to get a good list of agents, and you are going to keep on querying them until they all tell you no. By the way, while you're doing that, you're going to keep writing the next book. You're not going to stall while you query. This is going to be the project that you take on, that you do on Sunday nights or Saturday mornings or something for 6 months or as long as it takes until they all tell you no. Get a good list of agents. Keep querying them until they all tell you no. Now, where can you get a good list of agents? I have a specific recommendation, and I have no financial interest in Publishers Marketplace. Okay, Publishers Marketplace is a website with a lot of information about the publishing industry, and one thing that is super useful for today's purpose for getting an agent. Okay, and that thing is its so-called deal makers. You can see in the upper right corner of this screen capture, and I pulled these screen captures in February for when I taught this class at LTU in February. Okay, deal makers. Now, by the way, and you can see, yep, there it is. If you look in the center of the third paragraph in the center column, it says available for a simple monthly fee of $25. Registration is month to month, requiring no long-term commitment. What does this mean? It means you sign up for $25. That's your first month. You get everything you're going to need in about an hour. You can keep the account open for, a few more days if you want to poke around and see. But if you want, once you've got what you need, you can just shut down the account. So I literally, in February, signed up for $25, got all the screen caps I wanted, turned the thing off, okay? So Publishers Marketplace, $25 a month. So again, in 1 month, you ought to get the list of agents that you need. And frankly, it's like the price of a book, right? Now, so here's where you find the deal makers. In the left-hand column, there's a little button. Okay. Now, what is the deal makers? At the heart here, you've got a forum where agents or editors can announce deals, and those announcements with their deal makers tool become effectively searchable. It's really not a search, but it's like a ranking. Okay, so you can get a list of agents who are active in the space you want and actually doing deals. This means you don't have to worry, are any of them scams, right? You don't have to. These are all pros. They're all actually doing deals that are being announced and vetted on Publishers Marketplace. So that's how you find your way to deal makers. This is what the deal makers sort of front page looks like. And I should say as of February, I didn't double check it this week, but their interface has looked the same since like 2010. So I bet it still looks like this. If you look up here at the top, Deal Makers lets you select a type of deal maker. So like editor versus agent. And I selected agent, so I'll show you kind of the agent thing. And then deals category. Um, in other words, genre. Okay, fantasy, science fiction. Um, hey, Susan, that's great. There are other ways to do this, right? I'll talk about some of them, but I think this is a great way to get a bunch of agents in a dump for fairly cheap. Dump doesn't sound good. In a data dump, in one chunk of information. I deal makers type select agents, and here's the list of all the sort of categories again as of February, right? And so I think I chose agents and sci-fi fantasy, and this is the top of the list here. This is the top of the list here. Yeah, look, there are other reasons why you might want to be subscribed to Publishers Marketplace. There is news about the industry, right? You can go. They have a feature for, hey, tell me who so and so's agent is. That's maybe easier, more reliable than just Googling, right? But to get agent list, you can sign up, get the list, and unsubscribe and get all the information you need. So this is the top of the list that I got when I searched in February. And if you look at the list, let's see, do I have a little? So there's number one, right? Russell Galen, and it says, hey, he's done 5 deals, 5 fantasy deals in the last 12 months, 70 overall. Now these numbers are just the ones that have been announced on Publishers Marketplace, right? So he may have done more. These are the ones that have been announced. Now, by the way, look up above upper left, just not upper left of the image, but just above and left of the red oval. You'll see it says overall and 6-figure plus deals. So there's tabs you can, and you should you can toggle back and forth between those. You'll get 2 slightly different lists. In other words, who's done the most deals? That's the question here. Who's done the most deals? Who's done the most deals that are 6-figure plus? Right? And each one of these is a list that goes down to 100. DG Valdron raised a hand. Yes. If you've got a question, you want to type it in? Here, I will get to your question when you type it in. So what do? You got a list of 100 agents. What you know about them is that they've all done sci-fi fantasy deals in the last 18 months. Copy, paste. Toggle to the 6-figure plus deals, copy and paste. Some of you said, hey, this is a young adult fantasy novel I've written. Great. Go change your selections, and instead of being sci-fi fantasy, choose young adult. You get a different list of agents. Copy and paste all deals. Toggle this 100,000 plus. Copy and paste. Any conceivable genre that your book might fit in. Copy and paste and grab the list of agents. There'll be overlapping lists. Okay, but you'll have a list of agents who are actually working pros, have actually done deals in the last 18 months in your space. Okay, and you would pay the price of a book to get that, and this is basically the price of a book. Now, can you do it other ways? Sure, online forums, but then you got to worry about, do I know, is this agent just sort of starting out and brand new? Is this person a scam artist? And you're going and checking, trying to find out their rap. Lotus Magazine with a 2-page spread, but that's not going to give you 100, right? It's going to give you a few. Another thing you can do, like if you just don't want to spend $25, right? You can walk the bookstore. You can find every single book that you think is comparable in genre to yours, and you could do the same thing, by the way, on Amazon. You could click through the genre, look up if you're an urban fantasy, your novel, look up Jim Butcher, and then click on the categories. Some say urban fantasy category, click on it and see what the top selling 100 urban fantasy novels are. Get the names of the authors, and then Google who is the agent of Patricia Briggs, who is the agent of, right? So there are other ways to do this. I like Publishers Marketplace because it's only $25. and you get a whole bunch in one shot, and they're all vetted. You know they're all working successful agents. All right. Oh yeah. So there's the toggle: overall versus six-figure plus deals. Now, what do I do with these? This is a screenshot of the spreadsheet I am going to send to you guys. Okay, it is literally the spreadsheet that I used. I don't use it so much anymore because now my agent's pretty stable now, and so I'm not querying agents anymore. You're going to make a list. Now, you're going to have to look up every one of these agents online. Most of them will have a website. If they don't have a website, they will have something like a website. Might be like a LinkedIn profile, or it could be even a page on Publishers Marketplace that is searchable by Google. That'll show up outside of the paywall. Okay, but universally it'll have something. Why? Because they need to tell you how to query them, because they want you to query them. Right? They need, over time, maybe not right now, but over time, agents have to be open to getting new clients. That's their future business. So they have to tell you how to do it. So you're going to look them up, and you're going to figure out what each of these agents needs. Okay, what's the format? Now, here's what the large majority will say. The large majority will say, "Query me at this email address. Copy the first 10 pages or copy the first chapter into the body of the email." That's something like 90% plus of the agents you're going to query. They'll all want the same thing. That makes it easy. You got to be careful. You don't be silly. Don't email them all at the same time with one email, right? But basically it means you've got a standard package you can send to most of them. A few will say things like, save the first 50 pages as a PDF and upload it via my website link here. Or print out your manuscript and mail it to me at this address. And you got to look at them and say, is this worth? Michael, I like your question. I'm going to come back to it. Is this worth my time and effort to do the extra work? And I never bothered submitting in paper, for example. That's just, I don't know an agent who's worth doing that, and very few require it. But if they want me to make some special format manuscript and it takes me 5 minutes, it's probably worth my time. So you got to look them up. You're trying to find out, though. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. You're trying to find out, do they represent your genre? Are they open to submissions? And as I said, and what is it that you should send them? Now, some of them are solo. Okay, fine. So here's agent so and so. But often they work in a literary agency. In which case, while you're there, just look at the rest of the agents. And say, okay, Agent Sally reps young adult fantasy. How about these other three? And you're going to find more agents to go onto your list. Okay? So now once you've got the list, what do? You start querying them. Now, here's what I would do. Well, first of all, with respect to what I said, the sort of most agents require, the query plus the first 10 pages of the first chapter, hey, be thoughtful about that. Okay, I will tell you, when I queried the drollery, the Case of the Devil's Interval, that the first chapter was actually sort of in the nature of a prologue, and the second chapter ended on a much better hook and read like the beginning of the book. So I just went ahead and pasted the second chapter in, right? And that's how I got my first agent. If you think there's a really great hook and it's 9 pages into your first chapter, just go ahead and copy and paste the 9 pages in and end on the hook. Okay, now we're getting sort of into the Michael question. Ooh, we got several questions up here. So look, most agents want the same thing. A few want something special. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to have your list. If you went on Publishers Marketplace, you're going to have something like 60 to 75 agents. Okay, and you're going to query them all. You're going to query them all. I honestly would not, you hear bad advice around this. I wouldn't query 5 and wait to get their feedback. I would just query them all. Okay? Now, the only real rule here is that you only query one agent at an agency at a time. So if you've got three different agents at the Russell Galen Ghosh Scoville whatever agency that guy's at. Okay, you query one until you get a no, then you query the second till you get a no, then you query the third. This is why you need a spreadsheet. You got to keep track of who you've emailed and who you emailed what to. Now, Michael, here's where we get to some of your question. Look, if the agent doesn't answer, often on their websites they will say things like this: "Hey, if I don't answer, that's a no." Bull crap. If the agent didn't answer, it means the agent didn't answer. Okay, most likely what it means is the agent didn't read your email because she was out on vacation, or she was busy at a writer's conference, or she's doing something, and she just didn't get to it. Okay, so if you don't get a response, wait a period of time, say 6 weeks, and then query again. Now, listen, what you want to do is you want to change the query letter. You want to change the query letter subject line, right? The email subject line. You want to change it by one character. Why? So the first time you query, it looks like this. Query Fires of Desolation. I'm just making up a novel title, right? And if the agent doesn't answer, then you send a new query as if for the first time, like this: Fires of Desolation. Why? Well, because then their email inbox will not organize them as the same conversation. It won't look like you're being pushy. It'll just be a new query they didn't get before. Okay? So make them give you an actual no. If you have gotten to a no, I probably wouldn't query the same agent unless I had really rewritten the query letter. There's the risk here is that you just the agent might get annoyed, so it's not a really high risk. Except then that agent is probably never going to want to have anything to do with you, right? So if I've got a really rewritten query, I might do that. But otherwise, if it's identifiably the same book, I'd probably be very careful. Okay, hold on. A few other questions. Liz Lord, if our story has a prologue flashback. Oh, well, see, this is exactly where I was just saying. So with my first, with the Case of the Devil's Interval, it was a prologue, not a flashback. It was it was a genealogy, is what it was, and so I just took chapter 2. But I think the answer is you look at your prologue and chapter 1 and say which of these hooks the reader stronger up front, and which of these gives them a stronger hook at the back of the story, the back of the chapter, because those are the two things you want to do. My guess is it's probably not the prologue, which is why the advice usually is don't write prologues. Probably is chapter 1. Okay, DG, no problem. Man, there probably are, Brady, there probably are good resources of getting query letters critiqued. What I have done is my writing group. We're a little bit inactive now, but I had a writing group that was extremely useful to me when all of us were sort of starting out and trying to make our way, and we shared query letters as well as chapters and stuff. So if you haven't got one and you are aspiring, that man, that's a whole other seminar for like writers groups, how to do it and what not to do. But that's probably your best answer. Okay. We got another question. A disability that could slow down your level of productivity. Man, I wouldn't tell them, is what I wouldn't do. Unless it's relevant to the book, I wouldn't. Now, if they come back with an offer and they want to represent you, in the conversation where you're talking to the agent, it might be a good setting to say, whatever it is, right? I write with my feet. It's slow. Just FYI, or I think my productivity is probably a book every year, a book every 18 months. When that will really matter is when you're getting an offer. The contract will include deadlines, and that's when you want to make sure your people are really candid. I guess I'm saying too many words. I think it would be good for the agent to know, but I think the time when I would tell her is when she is calling you to discuss representation. I would say, I just want you to know, I deal with X, whatever X is, and it does mean that I'm a little bit on the slow side as a writer. I'm no George Martin or Pat Rothfuss. Haha, they're probably on the call, learning about query letters. But so that she knows when she's talking with editors is when I would do it. Man, I have badmouthed those guys enough. They probably already have contracts on my head. Okay, fine gentlemen, I'm sure. I wish they would finish their books. The only real rule here is you only query one agent at an agency at a time, right? If they say a non-answer is a rejection, bullcrap. If they try to give you advice on the manuscript, you are going to ignore them, okay? Because a lot of them feel like, yeah, exactly. A lot of them feel like, to prove that they are, superior in experience and knowledge to you, they will now tell you why your manuscript is not worthy of being represented, and they're full of crap. So I got, for the same manuscript on the same day, 2 rejections, both from big name agents. One of which said, "Hey, this story is great. Your characters are kind of two-dimensional for me. I'm going to pass." And then the other one said, "Oh, your characters are so lively and fully fleshed out. The plot's very predictable. I'm going to pass." Right? Agents are full of crap. They don't need to be able to tell a good book from a bad. They need to have contacts and friendships with editors. So when they give you advice on your book, you ignore it. Okay? Unless two unlesses. One, if a bunch of agents all give you the same advice. If you're hearing from 3 or 4 agents and they're all like, "Listen, whatever. The flying cannibal bat was one too far for me," and they all say the same thing, sit down and think seriously about the flying cannibal bat. Maybe is it worth taking that out, right? That's one circumstance. The other circumstance is when an agent says, "Listen, I'm interested. I have some comments." Okay. Now I experienced this with my first agent. My wife experienced this with her agent also. Okay. I have a buddy in my writing group experienced it with his agent, where the agent wants to test you out, wants to put training wheels on you. Now, why is that? Well, to cut back to some stuff we said earlier, right? The agent is going to make an investment of time in you. So she wants to maybe see kind of how well you work. Can you make revisions, right? So, and can she say to the editor she's going to sell you to, "Hey, listen, I had Dave do a revision. He was really prompt and really accurate, and was really easy to talk to," right? So if you get to this stage, probably the agent will give you a small number of comments and kind of see what you do in turning your book around in a few weeks or a couple months. Okay. Now at that point, it is just entirely up to you. Would you prefer not to work with someone who presumes to give you comments? That might actually be, you might actually strongly prefer that in an agent. Would you prefer, do you disagree with the comments? Maybe you don't want to make the changes because you disagree. Here, I'll tell you a horrible story. Writing and publishing are full of horrible stories. Killer robots. So that book, The Case of the Devil's Interval, it goes to an 8-year-old girl solving, Sherlock Holmes's cases, right? So I picked up an agent, and he said, "Hey, listen." He gave me 3 comments, and one of them was, "Listen, this is really, you had this fancy pants description of genre, thank you, but really this is a middle grade adventure story, which really means it's a boy story. So you got to change the main character to a boy." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, I'm just an aspiring writer. This is a big fancy agent. I better do what he says." And so I did it. And took the book out and didn't get any bites. No one bought it. And 2 of the rejections both said, "We would have bought this, but we're really looking for stories with female protagonists." So Um, I guess the point is you have to make the call. In hindsight, I don't feel very good about the call I made. But if an agent offers you, hey, I'm thinking about representing you, uh, would you consider making these changes to your manuscript? That is the second scenario where I would consider making changes. Otherwise, look, your goal is just to collect a no from everybody. Okay, you don't need their love, you don't need their advice. You are going to professionally query them until they tell you no, while you are writing your other manuscript, getting ready to send it through the same process. Now, some other miscellaneous points. Some of them I've already touched on. Don't take their feedback. I never, and I would say you should usually probably not spend a lot of time trying to customize your query. I think that that's imaginary value. Including don't say, oh, I chose you because you represent so and so and he writes the books of my heart. No, they hear it all the time. Doesn't matter. If they ask you to pay a fee, it is a scam. If they tell you their percentage is more than 15%, it is a scam. In fact, if they tell you their percentage is anything other than 15%, it's probably a scam. That's the standard. That's it. You pay an agent 15% when they sell the book. So you pay nothing up front. When they get a deal, the check goes publisher to agent, and then 85% of it, the agent sends a check to you. Okay. Just kind of a small note here. Hey, something important to realize is you guys as you are doing this, okay, and this is actually a point. Oh, Javier, I see your question. Hold on, I'll get to you in a minute. This again is like a whole other panel discussion we can have. Okay, but the basic point, okay, the basic point for your professionalism as a writer is you got to realize that you are not an employee anymore. You are nobody's office monkey. You are not making widgets for somebody else. When you are a writer, you are the owner of a small business. You are an entrepreneur. Okay? And that's how you got to think and kind of talk and carry yourself. I am a small business person and I am looking for an ally in the form of someone who has contacts with editors who can help me sell the book. Right? And so you got to decide, am I willing to, do I like this person? Do I like that person? Am I willing to make these changes to get this person as my ally? And I guess the last sort of no-no is I wouldn't announce if it's so, you have these long stretches as a writer where it's just like you're dragging yourself across sand, and like your back is blistering from the sun and you're bleeding from your eyeballs and you're thirsty. And then there's like a little wellspring of water. And it's an agent said, hey, I'd like to consider representing you. Don't tell anybody. Just wait until you've actually signed with an agent. And wait until you actually sign the publishing deal to announce that. Okay. Many things can still go wrong between an agent saying they're interested and getting a book sold. Javier, should you look in the debut section of Dealmakers? I don't know if there's a I'd go if you're a new one, I'd look for the debut, but I think genre is more important, right? Because I think you're not going to find agents. You will find agents who say things like this. I love bringing new voices to the market. A lot of them say that. Okay, you should read that as saying this is code for I am open to new queries, right? But the truth is, most of them are open to queries, they're open. Most of them are open to unsolicited queries, and if they're not, they'll tell you. So I think you're really not going to find an author or an agent who mostly represents debut authors, unless that agent is just new. And then, look, if you get in a position, the most likely success outcome here, okay, the most likely success outcome is you go through this process and it's bruising and it's painful, but somebody offers you representation and you check them out and you're happy and you like them on the phone and you say yes. If you happen to get more than one offer, which actually my wife got several, and you are choosing, then questions like what's better for me a new agent who has more time for me or a veteran agent who has better contacts are important questions, and the answer is basically not knowable in advance. So you're just going to have to take your best guess and go with your feel based on your conversations. I love that you guys are organizing a writing group. That's great. Okay, look, that's it. That's it for me. We got maybe 10 minutes here, so 14 minutes. Any questions, more questions or comments or objections, or if I didn't comment on your query paragraph and you really want me to look at it, you can repost it. We can talk about it. The time is yours. Haha. Frank teasing me. I have seriously pared back my Facebook interaction. I haven't left it, but I am doing a lot less. It is a sewer. It is a sewer. If World Fantasy will let me, though, I'm going to post a recording of this this discussion on the on YouTube and then on my website. Oh, thanks, Michael. Actually, I do this for a living, so most weeks, 1 to 2 days a week, I'm doing this on. If not this platform, then Cisco or Teams or something. How does the process change? The book has 2 authors. Oh, that's really good. Very little, I would say. It gets a little complicated. That's interesting. So I actually have published co-authored books, but I have never queried for an agent with co-authored books. Oh, you know what? I say that, but actually I lie. Haha, let me tell you a story. Oh, good. Well done, Michael. That's correct. So my wife's agent, she queried him with a book we co-wrote, a book that has not yet been published, although it is out on query again. So never say die. After I've been doing this for a year, and sort of. I think it became obvious to my wife it wasn't as magical and mysterious an industry as maybe it seemed. She said, I can do that too. She said, why don't you and I co-write a book? And so we co-wrote a book about time-traveling art thieves. And my experience in getting feedback from beta readers is that if I said, I, a man, have written this romance novel about time-traveling art thieves, is some readers said, I'm not going to read it. so if I said, oh, this was a book by Emily, then they read it. So we actually queried it that way. We queried it just under her name. This is the book where we got, I think, 4 different agents offered representation. We chose one. Megan, my pleasure. My pleasure, Sarah. And then we told them, by the way, there are 2 authors. Aha. And it worked out. But he only represents her. I've got my own agent. I guess that what I would say is, depending, if you don't want to query it in one person's name, I think you just got to know, have an open conversation between yourselves up front and with the agent about who are they representing, right? Hey, we have this book. Would you consider representing this book for starters? But maybe also would you? Oh, thanks, Laurel. Maybe would you represent our other books? I have an open conversation. It's way better to ask the question and have the agent say, I just want to represent this book for now, than to sort of have you ambiguous about whether you've got an agent or not for your other stuff, right? So I would feel okay querying with both author names. Just be explicit. Javier, boy, that's good. I would say, I'm repeating things I've said earlier in the day. I would say, your paragraph 1, you really gotta pick one character in your paragraph and tell her plot issue. Paragraph 2, then you've got choices. Do I tell another main plot? Do I tell a subplot? Maybe in paragraph 2, what you say is, the book is about the complex intersection of 4 plot lines, and here's a 1-sentence summary of the other 3. Just make sure right? That just stay focused, right? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to get the agent to read the 10 pages at the bottom of the email and ask for the whole manuscript. So if you write that second paragraph and you look at it and you go, that's kind of bogged down, then don't use that paragraph. Rewrite it and do something that's hooky. If you have to only describe one of those plots in the query letter, but it gets people to ask you for the manuscript, then that's successful, and they will see the 4 plot lines in the manuscript. Oh man, Katie, that is a huge question. Bam, I don't know. There aren't any online resources that I use a lot, really. I mean, other than stuff that you use in your daily life for other purposes, like Wikipedia for kind of first instance research, or I think Google Maps with Street View can be extremely useful if you want to set a story in a town you haven't been to, or you're not quite sure you remember what it looks like. You can go on Google Maps and put your marker down and get a 360 view of the intersection. But other than that, I've got a big library that is rapidly growing, and that's actually my basic resource. So that's a good question, but I don't have a very good answer for it. All right, I'm skimming back here, and I think that the rest over here, I don't think I've missed any. You guys are organizing yourself for a writers group. Yeah. And hey, Christy, thank you, very kind. All right, I'm going to go copy and paste so I can grab people's email addresses to send them the 3 documents. And I will stick around for another 8 minutes if anyone's got more questions. This copy paste thing is very slow. I know, I can tell there are new messages, but I'm only halfway down the scan. Sorry. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody's email address. And I know that you guys are giving each other your email addresses for the writing group. I'm not going to email you if you did that, okay? I'm only going to email people who gave me the email address to get an email from me. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. All right, almost down the bottom here. All right. Traditionally published. Let's go back and see what I missed here. Discord queries. Okay, if you have self-published works that have done moderately well but not break out major success, how should you mention about it in your query letter or new project? I would say I would say just like that. I'd say I have published a few books, and I have not yet reached a large audience. Now, if you self-published, I mean, man. So I know multiple people, or know of them, who sold really big in the indie space, and then the traditional publishers picked them up thinking, oh, we will also sell really big in the traditional space, but then they didn't, because the sort of tools and resources that indie artists have available, the big publishers either didn't have or didn't know how to use. So I guess that's just by way of saying, man, this industry is full of horror stories and hard times. But if you had a big, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can just copy and paste what I just took into a note here. If you had a big success, you sold 10,000 copies or something, okay? I would note that. Otherwise, I think the way you said it, hey, I've written several books, I won a state level award, without spending too much time on it. Okay, hold on. I saw there were some other comments in here. I am currently traditionally published to a micro press. Books have good reviews but small sales. Okay, so at the maximum page, I might say something like, my novel, X, published by Y publisher, was well received. Got good critical reviews. Book list said blah blah blah. Right. I might. That's sort of the maximum. I might not even do that, but that's the most I would do. Guys, I am so happy you feel energized and empowered, man. That is really the goal. It'll take me a few hours to get organized here. I got to go pick up my daughter from her bantam basketball practice. But this evening I will send an email out to everybody with those 3 things. I've got some more Q&A over here. Okay. If you have okay. So Frank, I got that question, I think. Is there a book, TV show, movie you love and wish you'd written or would love to rewrite? Oh man, that I really love. I really love Better Call Saul. I think that's the sort of my absolute favorite depiction of life as a lawyer. It's just so much grittier and more kind of real and painful than, for example, Ally McBeal was what was on TV when I was when I was a young TV viewer. CH, I see what your I see your email address. Boom, I will add you in there. What else? Man, I wish I was involved in doing the new Tolkien stuff, because I'm hearing terrible things about what they're planning on doing with it. Who is it? Amazon, and they've got like a nudity consultant or intimacy consultant. Like, no, this is not right. You have not read the books. Yeah, sadly, they are not. They're not consulting with me. Keep Bad Robot out of Middle Earth. Yeah, I might just not watch it. We'll see. Query letter for a novel with a non-traditional structure. Man, I think with short story collections, unless you are famous, the answer is just going to be no. Otherwise, I think it's the same. You might wanna mention, so there's a novel I accepted at Wordfire Press where the whole thing was The Watch. I have not watched that. Yeah, Shudder. The whole thing was written like Wikipedia articles, but for like a wiki about fairyland, and the articles set out kind of the setting, and the plot was actually happening in the notes of the editors beneath the article. Man, I can't remember the title of that book now. Really cool, really non-traditional structure. So of course everybody rejected her. We picked her up, but I would say write an ordinary query letter, except that of course the structure, you got to figure out what's the excerpt that I give people, and if it's if your structure is like it's like what? Like, I don't know, like if you wrote a novel without using the letter E or something, I might mention that just so that they, if they maybe won't notice it, if it's in epistolar form. But I think basically it should be all the same. Basics. Well, so Kara, that's a good question. I mean, this is there are plenty of examples out there of people who are older than 60 who have published their first novel. Again, I have acquired a few for the independent publisher where I was acquisitions editor. I think the sort of question or challenge for the agent is always going to be, just remember, however much they say I really want to bring new voices to the world, they also really want to make money. right? And so they're going to look at you and they're going to say, all right, if I take Kara's book and we sell, then the number of years of Kara's writing career may not be as long as if I picked up a 30-year-old. But of course, footnote, they might be, right? They might be longer. Who knows? But I think you have to assume that it's probably a factor. I wouldn't say I mean, unless it's relevant as a qualification, like if you're writing about a story about a protagonist who's alienated from her grandchildren because of custody issues, and maybe you say I'm a grandmother, and blah blah blah. So I think probably your age won't appear in your query letter, and so probably it won't really matter or come up until some point later in the process. So probably it's not going to be that big an issue, is my guess. Now I also think there's an advantage, because I had to tell you this, Kara. No offense to any 25-year-olds who are still listening, but I find very few things funnier than reading a novel in which some 25-year-old whose only accomplishment in life is to almost have finished a bachelor's degree tell me, the great meaning of life and important life lessons that he has learned, right? I think there's okay, good. I think if there's a disadvantage, I think there are some real advantages. I would not mention my age unless it's relevant, and let them discover it when they discover it. All right, Myra, if the novel set in a particular real world location, yes, Kara, I feel the same way. Oh my gosh, let me give you an example. No, I'm not, because then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell you the name of the novel, but there was a novel recently that I was in a bookstore. There's, I think, 2 books in the series, and it's pretty well regarded, sells a lot, and it's a fantasy series, and it's about like an old adventurer. It's kind of like, what if the D&D party got old? And the whole time, and I'm 47, right? So I guess I think I'm middle aged. But the whole time I'm reading this novel, I'm like, feels like it's written by a young guy. Like the only thing he thinks being old consists of is, oh, my bones ache, and like that's so little of what my changing life experience is. It just really turned me off. So yes, I feel like I have more to say with every passing year. All right, Myra, if the novel is set in a particular rural location, yeah, it could, right? It could. So if you say, hey, listen, it's an espionage novel about the spying between the Kingdom of Fairy and the Goblin Barony of Oxford, and I got my master's degree in Oxford, or I spent, 3 years at Oxford, whatever, while my mom was teaching literature, totally mention it. Why not, right? I mean, that's I think relevant. Yes, you should remind them. Give them a little time, But if they've got your manuscript, unless they define the time, if they say, "Listen, give me 3 months," then make a note of that. Give them 3 months, and then follow up. If they don't say anything, maybe a month. And always be professional. Say, hey, Sally, just writing follow up. Would love to work with you. So I was when I gave Toni Weisskopf my manual of Witchy Eye, okay, it was February of 2012. She bought the series in February of 2016. So for 4 years, she had the manuscript. So for 4 years, we were Facebook friends, and I stayed in touch. And every once in a while, 3 months or so, I would email and say, hey, just checking in. I just noticed that your author so-and-so won a prize. Congratulations, very cool. Or I noticed that you're a finalist for the, Hugo Award. Very cool. I look forward to hearing from you when you've had a chance to read Witchy Eye. I didn't even say, have you read it? I worried that would sound too aggressive. I just sent a really as non-threatening reminder as I could. Now, I don't know. If I'd been more aggressive, might I have gotten an earlier answer? Maybe. On the other hand, the answer I got was yes, in a 3-book deal. So I feel good about the way it went. Yes, totally. If you're saying, hey, this is like Breaking Bad, but if it was set in the Elf Kingdom, yes, you can totally do that. Yeah. Oh man, Mike. Yes, I did a panel at FanX last time, so like last year, that was like um, uh, horror stories in writing, and like Dan Wells was on it, and half a dozen of us, and it was just everyone sharing like things that happened that went surprisingly bad that I was not expecting, and every 2 minutes someone got up and walked out. We lost half of the audience. People were just getting so demoralized from us saying, here's what went wrong with my first agent. Here's what happened at my first publisher. I am glad things are moving. That is awesome. So 7 years, yes, that is not typical for anyone who's still watching. That is not a good outcome. It should be faster than that. But yeah. But now award winning, and things are moving along. All right. Well, look, I think we are over time. If anyone's still on, thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of World Fantasy. For my many friends who are on here, thanks you guys. It's very kind to tune in. Frank, Mike, everybody else. Good to see you all, and have a great weekend. Thanks, guys. Oh, thanks, Javier. Good luck.